Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Well, it looks like it is really actually happening. The most shockingly aggressive rescue bill of my lifetime is now very likely to be signed into law. On Saturday, after an all-night session, Senate Democrats passed the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package in a strict party line vote. Democrats all voted yes, Republicans all voted no. Because senators made some changes to the bill, it now has to go back to the Democratic-controlled House, which is expected to pass the identical Senate version this week, possibly as early as tomorrow. So the bill will then go to the president, President Biden, for his signature. Now, take a step back. We're in the early part of March, right? We're not at the 100-day marker yet. This is an incredible victory for both the country, the Biden administration, the Democratic Party, which held together amid unified opposition from congressional Republicans. They didn't get a vote in either house. They tried to break the party apart, that's what Republicans did, by forcing tough votes on amendments and arguing against the bill in public. But in the end, it didn't work. Democrats won. And as a result, a lot of people's lives are going to get better.
By passing this plan, we would have delivered real, tangible results for the American people and their families. They'll be able to see and know and feel the change in their own lives.
There is a lot in this bill, including, for starters, $350 billion for state and local governments, that some of whom have been really hobbled by the pandemic with their tax revenue and added expenses. There's $130 billion for K-12 schools, $25 billion in relief for hard-hit restaurants. That's part of the bill that we've been focused on here on this program for months now. There's tens of billions for COVID testing, which, by the way, is still important, still vital, even as we vaccinate. There's also a ton of money for vaccine distribution, other measures to fight and suppress the virus. And then that's the sort of programmatic money, right? Then there's the money that's just going to go directly to Americans, struggling Americans. That includes an extension of the $300 weekly federal unemployment payment bonus, right? That gets paid above what you would normally make for unemployment. There's also a tax break on unemployment benefits, so people do not get some shocking surprise tax bill, which is key. $1,400 stimulus checks for low and middle income Americans, coupled with an additional $1,400 checks for their adult dependents and children, and a child tax credit of either $3,000 or $3,600 per child, depending on the child's age. The child tax credit alone, just to be clear, this is for 1 year, okay, could benefit as many as 83 million children in this country. Here's the impact.
Taken all together, this plan is going to make it possible to cut child poverty in half. Let me say it again. It's significant, historic. We'll cut child poverty in half.
Advances like this piece of legislation, they don't come along very often. And not only is it going to impact child poverty, I mean, just let's look at the $1,400 check, right? That's on top of the $600 that was passed in the last relief package. So let's say you are a married couple, makes less than $150,000 per year. You got 2 kids along with an adult dependent, say a child in college or a disabled adult who lives with you. You're looking at $7,000 in direct payments from the government, $1,400 for each person in the family. I mean, that's a real game changer after the year that all of us have had. The White House says many Americans will get that money by the end of this month. So, how did we get here, right? I mean, one thing that strikes me as I look at this, right? Both parties have tons of corporate donors. There's K Street lobbyists on both sides working over Congress. There are ways in which both Republicans and Democrats are both overly influenced by big money, by corporate interests, by the rich, right? And yet look at the difference in the distributional priorities. When Donald Trump's Republican Party got elected, they tried to gut the ACA twice and then successfully passed a massive tax cut primarily for the rich and corporations. First thing out of the gate, Biden and the Democrats passed a bill in which the poorest 20% of Americans are expected to see a 20% boost in income, according to a new analysis, while the richest 1% will receive an income boost of 0%. And then think about that. Think about the difference in the distributional effects here. And then think about the fact that Republicans these days keep insisting they are, in the words of Josh Hawley, a working class party. And the thing is, it is true. The 2020 election suggested the GOP is actually increasingly relying on less affluent voters, while the Democratic coalition is actually getting more professional and more affluent. But the Republican rhetoric around standing for the working class is just not reflected in policy. I think that's why Republicans would rather talk about Dr. Seuss, try to stoke culture wars, because they don't particularly seem to actually have a policy agenda to help the working class. Republicans would rather inflame resentments in hopes of increasing their power.
When I was elected, I said we were going to get the government out of the business of battling on Twitter and back in the business of delivering for the American people, of making a difference in their lives, giving everyone a chance, a fighting chance, of showing the American people that their government can work for them. And passing the American Rescue Plan will do that.
There is a notion, right, that the two parties are increasingly hopelessly polarized. Each side is retreated to its corner. And while that's partly true, it's not the whole truth, right? Because what's happening is not symmetrical. It's true, not a single Republican has backed the new COVID relief bill. But just think back over the past year. When Donald Trump, the Republican president, was president, and the economy cratered and Republicans were essentially forced to pass stimulus bills, Democrats backed that legislation. They voted for economic stimulus multiple times in an election year, even though they had to know, and it probably did help Donald Trump's reelection bid, even though Donald Trump literally put his name on the checks. I mean, Democrats, I guess if they wanted to play hardball, right, if they were psychos back in the spring and they thought, look, you know, the better the economy's doing, the better Donald Trump's going to do in re-election, they could have refused to back the stimulus when Trump was president. They could have acted the way Republicans are acting now. But for a bunch of different, complicated, fascinating reasons, Democratic politicians really are committed to the project of using government as a means of helping people that are struggling. The proof is in the pudding in this bill. And Republicans, well, let's just say they're making a very different calculation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank all of you out there.
Thank you as always.
Thanks to at home.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for letting us into your homes during these extraordinary times.